Hello everybody, Tyler the Guy 3 here. Welcome back to Pokemon Universe Fanfic Review. Today we'll be doing the review of episode 13, and the Poke Seamstress, and Nebula's appearance. I know back then I said Team Nebula's appearance, rather than, or I said Team Nebula Strikes or something like that. I think that was a reference to an episode I made later on in the series. So yeah, obviously Team Nebula is the evil organization team that's going to be in this series, obviously, and I'm going to try to make them a little less predictable than like all the other evil organization teams that have happened, obviously, in Pokemon histories. But yeah, a lot happens in this episode, like a lot. So I want to just go ahead and get with that summary. Our episode begins with our heroes actually walking on the road, and they're actually really close to Alden Town. And because they're so close to Alden Town, though, Trent is getting a little impatient. He wants to get there really fast. And then the group notices a Caterpie. They see a Caterpie, and Coda actually wants to take a picture of it. So Coda's about to take a picture of the Caterpie, and the Caterpie looks at Coda and string shots Coda's camera. So now there's like sticky webbing all over the camera. At this point, and I know the script says a girl in glasses, and yes, the character Anne is in glasses. It's just when I needed to pick a sprite for her, I had a dumb moment and forgot that I wrote that in the script, because this is episode 13, and I'm way past episode 13, so I completely forgot. But, yeah, so Anne shows up, and she is basically apologizing for everything that happened. She didn't know her Caterpie had wandered off that far and wound up string-shotting Coda's camera and doing a lot of damage to it. Because Coda does wind up getting all the string shot off, so it's not bad. But because of that, Trent looks up Caterpie in his Pokedex and stuff. And on a side note, Trent, when you look at the script, Trent does look at new Pokemon on his Pokedex. The only reason I don't really talk about it during the review is because it'd be redundant. Well, not just that, and I feel like it'd take too long just explaining that Trent pointed a Pokedex at something. You all don't need to know that. But if you actually read it, there will be descriptions too, and the descriptions are based off the recent Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire Pokedex entries. So, that's fun. Anyway, aside from that, Anne wants to make up for what happened, so she invites them all to a picnic because she was going to eat lunch anyway. So they all eat lunch together, and she introduces herself to the group and calls herself a Poke Seamstress. Now, they get confused and they learn what a Poke Seamstress is. The Poke Seamstress is much like any seamstress. A seamstress's job is to fix and make clothing by sewing. So she sews, basically. And her Caterpie helps her sew by using this silk from the string shot. Luna asks her, when did she decide to be a Poke Seamstress? And Anne states it was about 5 months ago when she first met Caterpie. Her little sister, and we do a flashback of this, her little sister's dress got torn. And Anne tried to fix it, but she couldn't fix it. She couldn't figure it out. Then one day a Caterpie used string shot on her. And when the Caterpie ended up using string shot, she was mad at first, but she realized she can use the silk in order to repair the dress. So she wound up using that to her advantage, and she helped by feeding the Caterpie, and Caterpies love to eat. So every day she would feed Caterpie food. After that, Anne decided that she would help make and fix dresses all around the Gaeza region by becoming a Poke Seamstress. Just when she's about to leave, Caterpie winds up following her, and they wind up becoming close friends, and Anne captures Caterpie, and then they're off. The flashback ends, and Luna starts to notice that it's been 5 months since Anne started her journey, as she stated, and calls out her Caterpie on why it hasn't evolved into Metapod and or Butterfree yet, because it should have evolved by this time. Anne states that she doesn't want to evolve her Caterpie, and Caterpie shows no interest in evolving. Now, I will make this as a important note. Anne is a character based on one of my friends as a concept character when in Pokemon Universe. When I made Pokemon Universe, I asked a lot of friends would they like to participate in it. And by participate, I mean I would make a character personifying them basically into the story. And one of my friend's favorite Pokemon was Caterpie. She really only likes Caterpie though, so I couldn't think of any other Pokemon. So Caterpie is her only Pokemon for real. And for the occupation that she has, I think Caterpie is all she really needs. So, with that said, she has a specific love for Caterpie, not Metapod and Butterfree. It's weird, but that's how things roll. Anyway, when Trent calls her out on it, he basically kind of disrespects her. He's not intentionally doing it, but he basically just says, so you choose to make your Pokemon weak for forever. And Luna gets a little mad at Trent because this shows us a little bit of a sign of disrespect, and Trent is basically trying to defend himself by saying, what? I'm just saying basically what she said, just in a different way. And at this point, then, she's not mad about it as Luna is, but she does challenge Trent to a battle. Now, this is where things get interesting. Trent winds up using Hoot in the battle, and because of this, Anne clearly has the disadvantage here. A Caterpie versus a Hoot, this is a game set match. However, the battle starts, and when the battle starts, Hoot charges in for a peck. Anne tells Caterpie to use String Shot on Hoot's feet. Because of this, Hoot gets slow enough for Caterpie to dodge the incoming peck attack. After that, Trent tries to use another peck attack on Caterpie, and this time Caterpie uses a completely different method. Caterpie uses String Shot on the side of Hoot, right by Hoot, and then Anne tells Caterpie to reel itself in with the String Shot so that it can speed up and shoot towards Hoot. Then at that point, they use Tackle, and the Tackle's much faster and stronger because it was reeled in thanks to the String Shot. So that is how Anne uses String Shot offensively, and it does hit Trent's Hoot. At this point, Trent tells Hoot to use Hypnosis on Caterpie, and Anne tells Caterpie to use String Shot on its own eyes. So now Caterpie's blinded himself on purpose so that the hypnosis won't hit his eyes, so that he won't fall asleep. Trent states that he's got the advantage in this battle now, though, because Caterpie can't see. Caterpie doesn't need to see, however, as Anne states, and Anne states that she'll be Caterpie's eyes. At this point, Anne is able to direct Caterpie effectively enough to dodge Hoot's attacks. When Hoot tries to come in for another peck attack, Anne tells Caterpie to jump and use String Shot below. At this point, Caterpie's reeled himself in, so we've got gravity plus him reeling himself in plus the tackle. Hoot gets hit with a super hard tackle and gets knocked out. And Trent loses. Trent is really upset by the fact that he just lost, and he ends up returning Hoot. Anne tries to congratulate him on the good battle that they had, but Trent's not taking the loss too well, so he ends up just walking off into the woods all disappointed. Luna basically states that Trent's being over dramatic and he needs to learn from this defeat because Trent needs to learn that he can't just win every battle. The reason that this is kind of affecting Trent, though, is because previous episode he ended up losing to Sir Sterling and his Bisharp, as well as losing to the Banished Knights in the previous episode. So it kind of feels like he's at a losing streak, and that's what Coda even calls out and states. Luna states that he needs to just get over it and learn from the experience. So it's a sort of a back and forth. Anne basically decides she needs to go in and talk to Trent a little bit. Pichu's already ran off ahead in order to go cheer Trent up in the woods. Pichu meets up with Trent in the woods and tries to cheer him up. And then after that, Anne tries to cheer Trent up as well by stating that he is a great trainer and he's got a lot of great battling spirit. All he needs to do is just, find his own style and find his own battle strategy. At this point, while they're talking, it appears that some Pokemon in the woods are actually screaming, like they're in cries. Trent and Anne follow Caterpie and Pichu and deeper into the woods in order to see what's going on. They run into two thugs, and these two thugs keep trying to capture the Pokemon and against their will. But they're trying to just catch them not by battling them, just the messed up method of harming them. So then at that point, Trent uses Pichu and Anne uses Caterpie, and they try to battle the thugs. The thugs have Geodude and Poochyena. Anne tells Pichu and Trent to battle off against the thug that has Poochyena, because obviously electric attacks won't work on Geodude, so it would be no point. So Anne ends up battling Geodude, which, if you're already thinking, yes, Caterpie does have the disadvantage in this fight because Rock is good against Bug. However, when the battle takes place, Anne tells Caterpie to use string shots straight up into the large trees that are in the woods. And after that, she tells Caterpie to use string shot on every branch that's up in the woods that Caterpie can see. Meanwhile, we see the battle between Trent and the Poochyena thug. They're known as the Nebula Grunts, by the way, and they introduce themselves as the Nebula Grunts. When the battle takes place, Poochyena ends up coming in and using Bite on Pichu's arm. Trent at first is upset by this, but then uses that Bite to his advantage. Since Poochyena has a Bite grip on Pichu, he tells Pichu to use Thunder Shock, which is a close range Thunder Shock, which backs them off for a while. Meanwhile, we cut to Anne's battle. Geodude floats up into the trees in order to find where Caterpie is. Unfortunately, this was a bad move on their part. They try to fight off against Caterpie in the trees, and Anne tells Caterpie to bounce. Caterpie can't use the move bounce. However, what it's doing is that it's bouncing itself off from the string shot silk that it made. So Caterpie shot a bunch of string shot silk everywhere in multiple areas of the trees, and is using that silk to ricochet itself and bounce everywhere in order to dodge certain attacks like Rock Throw. So since it's bouncing off all of the silk, it's charging itself towards Geodude for super fast ricochet-based tackles. However, Geodude then tries to use tackle on Caterpie, and it misses. Then Geodude tries to go ahead and use Rollout so it can tear up all of the silk in the nearby area. However, this was a flaw because when he tries to do this, Anne basically has Caterpie use String Shot right on Geodude while it's using Rollout. The Rollout and String Shot wind up into this big, huge ball of silk. So now it looks like a giant ball of yarn, and Geodude's kind of trapped, and that's it. It can't really battle anymore. So Anne and Caterpie basically win their battle. While this is happening, Coda and Luna do run in and see what's happening during their battle. So they've caught up with Trent and Anne at this point. Meanwhile, back in Trent's battle, Pichu ends up getting hit by Poochyena's Shadow Claw. And Trent starts to think, man, I wish I could battle a lot like Anne. Anne used the environment to her advantage. And then Trent stops and thinks of something. Poochena goes in for the Shadow Claw again, and Trent tells Pichu to back up into the nearby tree. Pichu stops at the nearby tree, and then Trent tells Pichu to duck. Pichu ducks, Poochena traps his claw inside the tree, so now he's stuck on the tree and can't escape. Now that Poochena is in close range, Trent tells Pichu to use a full blast Thunder Shock. It hits Poochena point blank range, Poochena's out, and Pichu and Trent end up beating that Nebula Grunt. So both of the Nebula Grunts are defeated. They call him back up, and when they call him back up, there's a helicopter that comes in. And when the helicopter comes in, there's this guy, and he's got a scar, and the helicopter has a giant N on it. And when the guy with the scar comes out to pick up the Grunts basically want to retreat. And the guy with the scar basically scalds them both for their failure and doesn't even want their apology for failing, because he's like, apologies are just words, and I don't need those. Those don't bring results. He does, however, thank the Grunts, however, because if he looks at Trent and starts saying, I don't know why, but I get the strangest feeling we're going to meet these kids again. If we do, then I'm going to go ahead and tell them my name before I destroy them. So at that point, he looks at them and tells them that they'll fear Team Nebula. And then after that, they basically go away in the helicopter. The helicopter basically flies away, and they try to figure out who the heck that it was exactly. Also, during this whole squabble, a girl was in the woods trying to protect the Pokemon that Team Nebula was harassing. Anne tells Coda to get the girl out of there because she's injured her leg and her dress is torn. So she can't really move. So Coda basically picks her up to get her out of that area so that they can go ahead and, get her to safety. The girl reveals herself to be named Fiona, and she thanks them all for their efforts of helping her. After that, Anne congratulates Trent on the good job that him and Pichu did against Poochyena, and then Trent basically requests to battle Anne again, one more time, because he's basically figured some things out, and he wants to test those things out in the battle. Anne accepts the challenge, but before that they head to Fiona's, and Fiona wants to thank them all for helping the Pokemon in the woods, because, she's extremely grateful. Also, she's basically like a park ranger, and the woods that they were in was known as the Crystal Woods, and it's called that because there's crystal water in the woods, like really clear crystal water that the Pokemon like, and catching Pokemon in that area is basically prohibited. But anyway, we cut back to the cabin that Fiona has because they're going to eat dinner there. It's a way of her saying thank you for, saving the Pokemon here. But after everyone's healed up, Trent and Anne end up battling again. Trent uses Hoothoot again, and Anne uses Caterpie. When the battle starts, Caterpie ends up using String Shot on Hoothoot while Hoothoot's trying to use Peck. This time, Trent tells Hoothoot to stop and uses Confusion on the String Shot itself. When this ends up happening, it catches onto the String Shot, and Trent tells Hoothoot to throw the String Shot back at Caterpie. Thankfully, Caterpie tries to dodge it by using String Shot to reel itself in on a nearby rock in order to reel itself away from the attack. This time, Trent tells Hoothoot to use Peck on the String Shot that it used to reel itself away, not on Caterpie. So that breaks the line of the String Shot, which causes the reeling to release. So Caterpie's now just sort of trapped, flying in midair. At this point, though, Caterpie tries to save itself by shooting itself down. And then Trent uses the Confusion on the String Shot again. And Anne is like, this trick again, it's not going to work. So she releases the String Shot. But then Trent is like, okay, it is going to work this time, though, because now that that they've released the String Shot, Caterpie's in midair. And since Caterpie's in midair, it's vulnerable. Now Hoothoot has the advantage because now that Caterpie's in air, Hoothoot can just use Peck continuously on Caterpie while it's in air. Since Hoothoot's a flying type, using Peck quickly disposes of Caterpie, and Caterpie's out. Hoothoot is the winner, and Trent wins the battle. Anne congratulates Trent on winning, and they basically are done with the battle. Trent then thanks Anne for teaching him how to use the environment to his advantage in a battle, and Luna gets shocked because she is like, wow, Trent's actually being thankful for something for once. This is way out of character for him. And she also gets a little mad because she's like, hey, Trent wouldn't have even known that flying types are good against bug types if I didn't teach him about types. So then Trent goes up to Luna and then thanks her, and Luna is like, okay, fine, I'm not completely mad at you. But then Trent starts immediately then boast after he wins the battle and is like, yeah, I won because I'm a pro. And Luna gets pissed because she's like, wow, the split second we think that Trent's starting to grow up, he starts to act like a kid again and basically be cocky and egotistical. Anyway, Anne laughs at this, and they all pack up because they're ready to go this time. Well, they're ready to hit the road towards Aldentown. Anne states that she's headed to Aldentown too, and Luna suggests that she goes ahead and travels with them. Anne agrees to this, and Luna's happy because she finally can have another girl on the group to travel with them, because she hates being the only girl sometimes. And Coda and Trent are like, hey, what the heck is that supposed to mean? Anne does state, however, that she's going to be staying in Aldentown for a while, so her joining the group is only temporary. But with that said, the episode basically ends on that note. A lot happens in this episode, and I'm really loving that this wasn't just Anne's debut episode, but this was also a growing episode for Trent, because he got to get better as a trainer. He got to learn from losing a lot in this episode in particular, and him gaining a friendship with Anne really helped things out. A lot of battling happened in this episode too. That's what I'm particularly proud of. Like, Trent and Anne battled twice, plus the Nebula grunt. Oh, and originally they were going to be Team Galactic. I was just going to recycle Team Galactic again, because I felt like in the video games their goals wasn't realized. But I felt the smarter move would be to go ahead and just make an original team so that they can follow an original concept. So yeah, I'm quite proud of that. I like everything that went down. It was plot heavy, but it wasn't so much so to the point where this episode felt like it was going to be 3 episodes long in one episode. It did take a while to type, though, because I had a lot of people with dialogue in this episode, so that made things pretty long. Luna and Coda didn't really get to do much in this episode, but then again, this episode wasn't really meant for them. It was mostly for Trent and Anne. And yes, Anne is a temporary traveling companion. So yeah, I decided to add her because what the hell, why not? She is a reoccurring character, and I felt like it was best to make her a traveling companion. I just mentally made that decision, and I thought it was a pretty good one. So, yeah, they'll be with Anne for a while. And while they're traveling, they're all going to be headed to Alden Town. So, with that all said, the next episode is called Episode 14, Twilight Cave, A Goddess of Wonder. With that said, I'll see you all then, everybody. Tyrone the Guy 3, out.